Hi. In this video, we're going to look at files and exceptions and how you handle exceptions. I'm looking at a program, slow static unique, that we discussed in class, and it's going to run. It's going to take a while, and we can see the output down here in the console window. What we didn't talk about in detail when we were looking at the control structures like the while loop and the start and the end time were this aspect of what was going on, the throws of file not found exception. So we looked at the finished product, but I'd like to look briefly at building it. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to write a brand new version of this with some helper functions, and we'll see how that works. So we're going to call this unique words, and I'm just going to start with nothing and get to where we were before. The starting point in Java is a public static void main function or method, and we said before that this is how the program runs. We can see if I simply create a print statement, I'd like to run often as I go. I hit run, and I can see that it prints main here in the terminal. Now what I'm going to do is write a method that will return a list of the unique words in a file. So this is going to be called getUnique. I'm going to give it a file name, and it's going to return a list of the unique words. Let me just remind you that here I had a list, I read the words, and I found the unique words by only storing words in my array list when they had occurred once. Here I'm returning a list. Now I got a red X here because Eclipse doesn't know about Java, so I'm going to import list. I clicked on that X and I got that. Now I also have a unique an error. It says must return a result. I can simply return null, and now I have a program that will compile and not do much. Null means that the value returned is nothing. There's no memory associated with it, but it's a reserved word that means no memory. Instead, what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create the list. This is my next step, and this is a long way. This is going to be a new array list, and I'm going to return it. Now I have a red X in that it doesn't know about array list, so I'm going to import that. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. I'm going to import array list. Now I have two import statements up here. I made this list, I'm going to return it. We'll discuss why I can assign array list to list. This has to do with inheritance and interfaces. For now, we're just going to ignore that. Now I need to make a scanner out of the file. This requires two steps. I need to create a file from the file name. Now, my program doesn't know about file, so I'll click on this and it's going to say import something. I import java.io.file, and now I can have all my import statements up here. Now I'm going to need to create a new scanner from the file, and now I have a red X again that says import scanner, so I'm importing all of these one at a time. Now in this case, the red X says S is never closed. There's a resource leak, and there's a file not found exception. Well, it's easy for me to close the scanner, and closing the scanner will also ensure that it closes the file, and it's a good idea to keep your resources in check. Now, for the moment, I can do two things. I can add a throws declaration, or I can surround with a try catch. We're going to recommend long-term that adding the throws declaration is the right thing to do, but for right now I'm going to surround it with a try catch, and I'm going to explain that very briefly. What this does is it says I'm trying to create the scanner, and if the file wasn't found because I gave it a path name that doesn't exist, then I need to do something. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, print an error message, but I want to return null, which means that, and then I'm going to, if the scanner was created, then the code will fall out of the try catch block and be here, and I'll review this. And so now I know the scanner was successful, and I can simply say while s.hasNext, and I'm going to say list.add s.next. But if I could type, it would be even better. So now I have all the words, not just the unique ones. And if I remind myself what happened here, I have to make sure that the list doesn't contain the word in order to return it. So I'd have to add that if statement. If it's not the case that list contains s.next, so I need to store that. I'm going to explain why I'm doing it this way and what the error would be if I didn't. Let me review this code. I'll run it and see what happens. If I try to call getUnique and store the result here, I'm going to get an error message. And the error message is, cannot make a static reference to the non-static method getUnique. This is static. This is not. The simplest way to avoid this is to make this method static, which is what I'll do for now. I put the word static in the wrong spot. There it is. An awful lot of stuff here. Now, when I run this, essentially what I've done is recreate the program I had before. It might have been a good idea to run it on a smaller file to test it, but I'm going to end up with the same numbers, I hope, except when it's done, I forgot to print anything. So it completed, and I'm going to print number of words is u.size. And I'm going to actually check it on a smaller data file. Run that. Number of words was 1039. So I've got this. Just reminder of what I was doing here. I was explaining how the import statements work, and I was showing what happens when you create a scanner from a file, and I'm forced to catch this file not found exception. I'll explain that a little more in the next video.